All right, we're back here with Granny. Thank you for joining us again, Granny. Good to see you again. All right, so Granny, we are going to be talking about now, well, number 6, staying in there, you're a trooper. This one says, popular ideas about language learning. Most of the mistakes that second language learners make are due to interference from their first language. Now, that is common. First, let's acknowledge that learning a second language can allow you to be confident in certain areas of learning another language, not specifically in areas. For example, if you learn a cousin language like Spanish, you can learn, you have similar alphabets, you can learn cognates and similar syntax structures. But it is very common within learning a language that you do have errors and you do have differences and similarities. For example, learners may not be able to identify or be aware of the similarities between the two languages. So that is one area. And secondly, pretty much they are just, in addition to, let's say someone has a problem with learning something in a language. Someone from a different culture may have that same problem as well, or a different thing as well, a different person as well, including maybe even a native language learner may have that problem. And what that means is that people are just trying to discover the pure structure of a language. So that's not obviously just based on learning another language. It's based on the fact that they're just trying to find the structure out. So, all right, and then the next one is the best way to learn new vocabulary is through reading. And Grandma, that is 100% absolutely, totally true. The best way to learn is through reading. The best way to learn vocabulary is through reading. Let's see. Yes, a lot of people read, a lot of second language learners have a lot to catch up with in comparison to first language learners, because first language learners, they go through years of schooling where a lot of what they do is reading. So it's kind of impossible to catch up to that in the realm of second language learning, but that is why people recommend learning or reading books that are interesting and important to you, so that you can excel. And another thing is that, did you know, Granny, that 90% of people, when reading something that they don't know, when reading a text, they have to know, researchers say that you have to know 90% of that text in order to identify a word that you don't know. So reading is the best way to accumulate more vocab. And number 8 is it is essential for learners to be able to pronounce all the individual sounds in the second language. And that is false, because basically the ability to produce a language is based on the fact of the melody of a language, the phrasing or stress patterns of a language, not specifically every single letter. Oh, in addition, when talking to other groups of people, you want to know that their specific type of specialty within that language. Each language has their own little specialty of accent and things like that, and you want to be able to know that to be able to adequately communicate with those interlocutors. So. Number 9 is, once learners know roughly about 1,000 words in the basic structure of a second language, they can easily participate in conversations with native speakers. That is true to a point. Granny, you are missing one in this idea about language learning. They're missing one important aspect of language learning. And yes, when you know 1,000 words, that's great. and you know structures, but you're missing the important part of interacting with someone, and that is pragmatics, knowing how to accomplish something within context. For example, one thing that's important is knowing how to respect someone or how to ask for something in a polite way. And those things are all really important to know when dealing with pragmatics of the language. Or also, especially, you want to know how to apologize to someone because you don't want to get yourself in trouble, Granny. I know you've done that before, so you might want to learn pragmatics and how to do an apology properly in another language before you just jump in and try it your own. And number 10 is teachers should present grammatical rules one at a time, and learners should practice examples of each one before going on to another. That is not true, because we know that second language learning is not linear. It doesn't result with just learning one form after another. You just do not learn one structure and then just keep building on it. Everything is intertwined. Yeah, and you view language forms and you would readjust them and restructure them into your interlanguage to develop something so you can eventually put all the pieces together. So it's not necessarily that you have to learn one after another. It's like putting a puzzle together and putting all of the pieces together to create part of an inner language to then proceed and reconstruct until they all fit adequately into learning the language. And number 11, teachers should teach simple language structures before complex ones. That is not necessarily true. It is proven, researchers do say that you do need to learn that some structures become acquired before others, but that doesn't mean that you need to teach them or learn them right in that order. Because what you're doing is you're learning those structures in isolation, Granny, and that's not going to help you in the overall learning of the language. Because you may know how to do it in that particular context, but you may not know how to do it in another context later down the road. And they also say that if you learn one context and continue to build, if you learn one set of rules or structures and you continue to build on them, you will then eventually lose the ones if you don't use them in a different context. And number 12. Learners' errors should be corrected as soon as they are made in order to prevent the formation of bad habits. Yes and no. Not right away. It kind of depends on the context. You want to... This is Mega. You can enjoy my sister mopping in the background.
Hi, sorry.
She's just joining the show. She's working for Granny. Granny's gonna pay her 5 cents an hour, right, Katie?
$15 an hour.
That was 5 cents. Granny says 5 cents.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
All right. Okay, sorry. So let's focus. Okay. We're back to number 12. Learners' errors should be corrected as soon as they are made in order to prevent the formation of bad habits. They shouldn't be corrected right away, it kind of depends. If you are teaching a whole class and they're all on the same level, and it being repetitive and you know that they need to hear it, yes, repeat it right away. But I wouldn't do that individually to one person right away, Granny, because if you keep doing that to one person, that's really going to eliminate their motivation to learn. But if it's in a whole class setting, you want to be able to correct that so that they don't keep doing the same error. And yes, and you also have to be careful in the way that you explain your errors. Depends on your audience. For example, if you have an adult and a child that are not really literate in their first language, you're going to approach explaining to them in basic terms in a very different way than you would for a college student that is learning English. So it all depends on your audience. So yes, you want to correct people, but maybe not necessarily all the time and not necessarily right away, kind of depending on the situation. And number 13 is Teachers should use materials that expose students only to language structures they have already been taught. And we know that that is false because yes, learners comprehend structures that they have not yet mastered. So, for example, in everyday life, you come across people that are going to be learning structures that you hear and that you use more than what you've already learned. In addition, you want to be careful on the structures that you do use. You don't want to make them too hard, because if you make them too challenging, then the students will obtain a low motivation, a low ability of motivation, because they will feel like they can never obtain it, or they'll never get to it. But on the other hand, if you create a step-by-step ability where you only give them a little bit by a little bit, then they'll become dependent on you, and they won't be able to grasp the fact that there are other structures and things change at this point in time, and maybe not at this point in time. And so you want to just be careful so that they do not become dependent on you. And we're done for this session, and we will record the next one.